So, um, so we are on chapter 7, right? Gyan, Vigyan, Yog, where the Lord reveals to us how to recognize Him as the source of all phenomena and all Maya, right? Um, so, Lord is revealing to us how to recognize Him as the source of all Maya, right? The source behind Maya, which is not always apparent, right? There are things that are apparent and those that are not apparent. So He's trying to show us how to see the non-apparent hand of Him behind everything. And then He tells us that He vitalizes this Maya through His three gunas: the Sat, the Raj, the Tam. Right? Satogun. What is Satogun? It is the way, how do you recognize and what are the characteristics of Satogun? When there is Satogun, there is clarity of thought, there is enlightenment, there is knowledge, there is understanding of what is real, what is not real. There is a sense of happiness, calmness, peace that comes with Satogun. Then we have Rajas. Rajas comes with dynamism, right? Rajas is dynamism. It represents dynamism. It is the guna that causes all activity to happen in the world, right? So Sat is the law that governs. Raj is the dynamism that causes action to happen, but it also creates attachment to this world. It also creates attachment to the three to the Maya outside. And then the third is Tam. Tamas is the inertia that causes things to come to a rest, right? But it also has the impact of creating ignorance. It has the impact of obscuring your thought. It obscures intellect. Now, people get deluded because these three gunas, they constantly come together to create a lot of change. That change is constantly happening, right? And because there's constant change happening, our minds and our intellect is constantly engaged in trying to make sense of that change, right? Something's changed, what does this mean? Another thing changed, what does this mean? So we are constantly in action in this and we are constantly glued into this world because of the change that these three gunas create constantly, right? And that's why we get deluded. This is called being deluded by the three gunas. So the only way to escape the three gunas, the only way to escape the temptations created by the three gunas is to take refuge of the Lord. And there was a very beautiful example which was shared in last class. The example was that when there is a fisherman, right? Fisherman is God here. He casts out his net of Maya to catch the fish, right? When he casts out his net, the fish that are out there will get caught and ensnared in that net. If the fish are at the fisherman's feet, right? Any fish at the fisherman's feet will never get caught in that net because the net is out there. It is not at Lord's feet. So the only way to get past this Maya is to take refuge in the Lord. That is very important. That's the only way. And Lord has Himself told us, Maya is Durat Tatya. It is extremely difficult to get over. It is very easy to get ensnared. It is His creation. It's a superb creation. It is the best out there. So it's so difficult to get outside of the glamour that it creates. It's very easy to get attracted to it, to get attached to it. And so the only person who can help us to get past it is the person who created it, which is the Lord. So we have to take full refuge in Him. That's the only way for us to get past it. So now that we know that there is a way to get past it, and that is by taking refuge in Him, why do people not do that? Why are there so many people who are sad or who are, the people who are unhappy and constantly here and they are unable to get past the Maya? So for that, in the last shloka that we covered in last class, Bhagwanji says that the people who are vile or vicious, the people who have Rakshasi tendencies or have Asuri tendencies. These Asuri and Rakshasi tendencies are the enemies of the Lord. And these are all within us. Yeah? We have Devi Gun inside us, the divine gunas inside us, the divine characteristics. We also have Rakshasi and we also have Asuri qualities inside us. Right? So, what prevents us from being fully devoted to the Lord at all points of time is when those Asuri or the Rakshasi tendencies come up. So, what are these Rakshasi and Asuri tendencies? Asuri tendencies are those that are built upon I, me, myself, right? Pride, ego. When there is an Asuri tendencies on the rise, at that point of time, we are constantly only thinking of self-preservation. If we are thinking of self-preservation, then we are not exhibiting divine characteristics. Then we are not with Lord. Then we are with the Asuras. Because all we are thinking of, what about me? How do I preserve myself? How do I gain this? How do I capture that? How do I get that? So I, me, myself, and how do I increase the scope of my I, me, myself, which by definition is limited. Because I, me, myself is of this world, right? So it is limited by its very nature. We've defined it to be limited. So now I'm trying to increase the scope of it by increasing what is I, me, myself. What is mine? Now this house is mine. Now this influence is mine. Now these fans are mine, right? This family is mine, or whatever I call mine. That is Asuri. Asuri tendencies are built on ego and pride. They are the basis for all Asuri tendencies. And then we have Rakshasi tendencies. Rakshasi tendencies are where, so in Asuri tendencies, you will do anything and everything to hurt somebody else as long as it benefits you. Okay, you're not thinking about other people at this stage, right? You're not thinking about the greater good. Okay, and this is what we see when we break lines, or when we do certain things which are not really good for the society, but we are only thinking of ourselves by grabbing something. Ki apna dekh lo, right? That is Asuri tendency. Rakshasi tendency is one step higher, where you will go out of your way to hurt someone else, and there is no benefit for your. I mean, there's always a benefit that your lower self will perceive, and the lower self will perceive as like you will hurt someone else because you feel good, or you bring someone else down just to make yourself, because you're not raising yourself, but you get someone else down. So when we are gossiping about other people, this is a Rakshasi tendency, right? We gossip about other people, we say bad things about other people. That's because हम लोग अपने आप को raise नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो दूसरे को नीचे गिरा दो, so that relatively speaking we feel good about ourselves. That's the whole crux of all gossip, of all entertainment that's filled with gossip and talking about who does what, when, where, why, right? All of that is Rakshasi tendencies, right? So when the Rakshasi and Asuri tendencies are on the rise inside of us, the divine takes a backseat. And that is when we do not feel veneration for the Lord. We are not able to give ourselves to the Lord. And then all of those questions, Bhagwan kya hai? Ye to kuch nahi hai. Jo bana. I am a self-made person, right? It's such a commonly spoken sentence. It's a very Asuri sentence. I am a self-made person. He is a self-made person. Nobody's self-made, right? You have been given circumstances, and you have been given resources, and you've been given certain abilities, which if you align them all with the Lord, you will be able to create certain gifts for the world, right? People are not made for themselves, right? They are made by the Lord. Because of course, not to say कि हमने कुछ नहीं किया, because we all have, these are all results of our past actions only. Ultimately, we have that control, right? Our actions. So basically it tells us that this is the reason why people don't take refuge in me, because they have fully given over to their Rakshasi and Asuri tendencies. So now after he speaks about such people, now Lord speaks about, in the next one that we will read, is the people who take refuge in him. So now we understand those who don't take refuge in him. Now let's understand who will take refuge in him. Okay. So we start with Shloka 16. So Kakli, you'll read with us. You'll read the correction.
Having described the persons who have no veneration for him, the Lord now describes those who worship him.
Chaturvidha bhajante mam.
Chaturvida bhajante mam.
Jana sukritano Arjuna.
Jana sukritano Arjuna.
Arto jigyasu surtharthi.
Artho jigyasu sutha. Artho jigyasu
Surtharthi.
surtharthi.
Yeah. Arto jigyasurtharthi.
Artho jigyasurtharthi.
Jnani cha bharatarshava.
Jnani cha bharatarsabha.
So Chaturvidha is four types. Four types. Bhajante, worship. Mam, me. Jana, people. Sukritano, people who do good deeds. Su, good. Krit is actions. People who do good deeds, Arjun. Arto, afflicted. Arto is afflicted. Jigyasu are the curious, the inquisitive. Artharthi, Artharthi are people who want some earth, people who want some material gain. Defined here as the needy, the people who want some earth, people who want some gain. Jnani is Savant, the Jnani people, right? The wise ones. Let's see.
O Arjuna, four types of virtuous persons worship me: the afflicted, the inquisitive, the needy, and the savant. O best of Bharatas. Four types of devotees. Merely singing praises of the Lord does not constitute devotion. The Lord can be worshipped by dedicating to him all the acts performed as duty without the least consideration of personal comfort or fulfillment of desire. The heart of such a person is always full of joy, and such a person sings the praises of the Lord with unbounded love. Such devotees are classified by the Lord in four types as below.
So before we go to the four types, this paragraph's very telling when, and it breaks our worldview of what a devotee is. So typically we think of a devotee as someone who goes to the temple every day, who sings bhajans, who does aarti, who does puja, and we call, like in our understanding, in a gross form, they're doing everything. So they're a devotee. Bhagwan Ji is saying that is not my devotee. That is not why you're here in the world. You are here in this world to worship me by doing your duty and doing it selflessly and offering the fruits of it to me. Don't get attached to the fruits. That is doing duty. And that is being a devotee. And this is very, if you think about our own lives, whenever we come to a tough situation and we're exhausted and our son is still being difficult and irritating, or the spouse is really taking you for granted and you're working, or your boss is taking you for granted, piling work upon work, and at that point you have all these thoughts that come up, right? You can easily get angry, you can start gossiping, you can start doing why me, victim, blaming, all of those things. But it is in those moments you have to become a devotee. And in those moments, if you're like, Bhagwanji is giving me this more work for some reason, it's to clean my own antakaran. If I'm feeling irritation, Bhagwanji is giving me a chance to control my irritation, like rise above my asuri tendency. I will do this for Bhagwanji. I will, and you just act out that, finish that act, and that is a devotee. That act is an act of a devotee, right? So devotion is not a physical act. Devotion is a bhav. It is the intention. And if you understand that, then every act we do can be a devotion. Every act, something as small as even offering water to someone, is an act of devotion, right? So when we read the next few shlokas, don't uh, classify things as we typically do in science as black white. Reflect upon it, because all of these parts exist within us, and it's different situations that trigger different forms of our devotion.
Correct. Very true.
Four types of, the afflicted, the person who seeks protection from the Lord alone, and always keeps him in mind for removal of worldly afflictions, is called the afflicted devotee. To this class belongs Queen Draupadi, who sought protection from the Lord, feeling completely helpless in the court of the Kauravas. Vibhishana, who sought protection of the Lord after suffering indignity at the hands of his brother Ravana, also belongs to this class.
So this is something we discussed last class also, right? Why do we get, Dvina explained that you have the shank and you have the chakra, right? And sometimes your whole world falls apart. And then you can either go into victim mode by me, or what all of us tend to do in those moments when we are completely helpless is we turn mode. Because instinctively we know that we don't have that power. He has the power. So as much as you have an ego and you can think you're self-made and you have that control and you feel powerful, eventually when all things come crashing, you will turn only one direction, towards him. And that is the afflicted devotee we are talking about. So the Draupadi example, I think everyone's familiar with it, right? The sari, right? Like her husbands were in the court, her family was in the court. Nobody, she turned to everyone in the court, and right at that last moment, she she tried to control with her teeth, her hands, and then when she couldn't, and then they started pulling the sari, she just went to Sri Krishna. But the interesting thing here is for Bhagwanji to respond, you need to have a very important element of surrender. You need to surrender to Bhagwanji for him to respond in these situations. So it's not, if it's not a it shouldn't, surrendering to Bhagwanji is a very powerful way of evoking his love and responsibility. Right? Like if you, like, we all are parents, we have small children. When they come to us with an agenda, I want this, and they're trying to be slightly sneaky, we can smell it very quickly. And when we smell it, our guards are up. We ask the questions, we try to figure out, we try to outsmart. But when the child comes completely helpless and says, "Mama," like crying or whatever, and he comes completely in a state of vulnerability, saying, "Mama, I just really need some help around this. I'm completely lost." There is nothing you're going to be doing that is going to be more important than his need, because he surrendered his entire situation onto you. You see the difference? And that's us with Bhagwanji. When we surrender ourselves to Bhagwanji, he responds in a very uh, loving way and in a directly proportionate way. So you could be in a tough situation. Don't expect कि मैं pray करूँगा और मुझे तुरंत मिलेगा. It is that bhav of surrendering to him that will trigger uh, that response back.
there's another important thing here, right? So if there is an expectation we are afflicted, right? There's some problem that's happening and all, and now I need to deal with that problem. And so I'm surrendering myself to the Lord, and I expect the Lord to help me out, right? What we need to give up is what is our expectation of the resolution of the problem. What happens is कि हमने सोच लिया ये problem है, इसका ये resolution होना चाहिए, right? And then we get stuck with that resolution, and then we ask Lord, please get me this, help me with this, which may not be even a good resolution, right? For you, ultimately, in your ultimate beneficial space, right? If you surrender yourself to the Lord, then you have to trust He will find a resolution. And that resolution may be very different from what you had envisaged the resolution of the problem to be. Okay. And it may not necessarily mean that your that the physical pain, if I were to say it that way, the physical pain is removed. Okay, maybe the resolution of the problem is that the physical pain will continue, but there will be a dissociation, mentally speaking, from the source of that affliction. So that while you're going through that pain, which you bodily need to go through in this world to kill your prarabdha, your mentally you will be in a space of calmness, in a space of peace, in a space of happiness. And we all know that ultimately happiness is all here. It's all inside of us. It's not because of the VBGP outside of us, right? And so that is the real surrender. You say, Bhagwanji, help me, but then He will help in the best possible manner. And always say, Bhagwanji, jo main chahta hu, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do what you want. And help me surrender myself to your will. Right?
Inquisitive. Some pious persons become keenly inquisitive and desirous of gaining knowledge about reality. Their search for knowledge of reality makes them totally unmindful of the world. Such persons are known as inquisitive devotees. King Parikshit, who sought knowledge from the sage Sukadeva, is one such example. Another example is the sage Uddhava, who received spiritual instruction from the Lord Himself.
I think some of the
The
greatest scientists in the world also fall in this category. Right? All they are trying to constantly do is to push themselves to find the truth about some part of the world. And they are constantly being guided by the Lord on in their direction. So whether it's Albert Einstein or whether it is, like a famous example I remember from our school days was the person, a French scientist who found the structure of the atom. Right? He had been working extremely hard to figure out what the structure of the atom looks like, and he couldn't figure out how do protons, electrons, how do they come together to create the structure. There's a very famous this thing. He found the answer to this in his sleep, in his dream. He saw so this he was looking at the structure of carbon. That's the atom of carbon, and and in his dream he saw six snakes holding onto each other. One snake holding the tail of the other one in his mouth, and like that forming a circle and going around in circle. That is how he found what the structure of carbon atom is going to look like. Again, so this is an example of him being that inquisitive person who is trying to find the reality, and then he gets guided by the Lord.
I mean, and right now, no, in corporate life, and if you engage with life coaches and some of these tools available, there is and in psychology as well, there is a whole, there is a very popular method now to find answers to problems. Right? Whenever you don't have an answer to a question, uh, the the best advice people will give you is keep that question in mind and fall asleep and think about that question day in day out, not analyzing the answer. And he says this the psychology says the subconscious will reveal that answer to you in a way that you can never expect. And that's exactly what Tuvina is trying to highlight as well, is a lot of our creation in this world, insights, have actually been generated in very lateral thinking, where we don't even know where thoughts come from, right? So, yeah, I think we're digressing.
That is Bhagwanji speaking first, right? And this is the type of so what we're talking of is how do we what kind of devotees are present, how do they do their devotion to the world, right? So there when we get afflicted or when we get inquisitive about finding a problem, finding a solution to a problem, we can turn to Lord. And that turning to Lord takes the form of how it is VVGP, right? We're constantly thinking about something and we are fully devoted to finding a solution to that problem. We are fully, like, expressed out there. And we'll do everything in our capacity in a good way to try and find a solution to that problem. And then Bhupanji comes to help for such devotees.
So, I'll I'll share what I wanted to share actually. Um, where do thoughts come from? Do you own your thoughts? I can just say, can you think of a pink elephant? And now you've just thought of a pink elephant. So thoughts are constantly, they're not our own. We don't create them. They come to us based on what is around us. So right now, thoughts are coming to you because of the environment we are in, the different places we are living, the conversation we are having, and that is giving you thoughts. But if you remove all of this conversation, I'm sorry, then your thoughts will completely change. Correct? So so the way I always visualize this is, imagine there is a whole internet above us, which is millions of thoughts. It's how we plug into the internet, and then we will get the thoughts that we are ready for. In the inquisitive bhav of the devotee, the person has a question, but now he's looking for the right thought. And he's asking Bhagwan Ji, कि मुझे वो right thought दे दो. So there is no sense of ego there. I am thinking of the solution. I want the answer. I am the most intelligent. It is a bhav where you are requesting his insight to move your duty and work and your seva bhav forward. And that's what the inquisitive person is, right? From a devotee perspective.
And again, like we said, the only relationship to this world should be that of seva. Right? So an inquisitive person is also doing seva as long as he's solving a problem in the right manner. He's solving a problem for people out there, right? Somebody is trying to solve a problem. So that is a second type of devotee. Let's go to the third type of devotee.
The needy. Some people earnestly seek the beneficence of the Lord for fulfillment of their worldly needs or for getting felicity thereafter. Such persons are known as needy devotees. Sugriva and Dhruva are considered to be such devotees. They started their obeisance and worship of the Lord for getting a kingdom, but later on became dedicated devotees. The Savant. Some persons are recluses by temperament, and in their view, there exists nothing but the Supreme. Such persons always enjoy the felicity of the spirit and are called savants. The sage Sukadeva and the sage portrait of Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara are such savants. Those persons are also considered to be savants who are engaged in the pursuit of Jnana Yoga, having renounced the world.
So the third type of devotee is the needy. Now, needy is a person who actually does the Bhagwan Ji ki puja for getting some kind of material benefit, right? So Dhruva as an example, because he went and he started off his puja as what? He wanted the love of his dad, and he wanted the kingdom, right? So we have all been in that space, right? So at some points of time, we become those needy devotees. But the difference here is that you are, again, like Abhinav said, it's a bhav, right? You're not saying that I want this thing and I will create it. You know very clearly, you understand who's the giver in this world? Bhagwanji. He is the ultimate one. So you're asking him for help. You're not asking anybody else. You're asking, your only dependence is him. Whether it is for material things, whether it's for non-material things, your only dependence is the Lord. Okay, and that is what makes him a devotee, even though he's asking for material benefits. Now, Bhagwanji, and we will, I think, read this in the next few shlokas, but he's also said this before, also in chapter 4, chapter 5, we read that whatever form in which people will worship the Lord, he will respond in kind, right? And he will protect the faith of everyone in whatever form that faith exists, because faith is the most important thing. Faith is the most important thing. So if your faith is in a particular deity, to say that this deity is going to give me something, Lord will protect that faith. And he will ensure that that deity's powers get granted to you and you get what you're asking for. As long as you're doing it with the correct way, you're doing it with complete surrender and the complete faith. The stronger the faith, the better the response from Bhagwanji. Right? And the whole idea is that, why is he doing that? Why is he going to give in to people's material requests? The reason is that when he fulfills these smaller requests, right, the idea is that eventually that faith will keep growing and growing and growing, and this person will at some point of time move out of the space of abhav, and he will stop asking for material things, and he will start to realize that he's asking for such petty stuff. And at some point of time, his love will transform so that he's going to start asking for his uh, just his love rather than ask for material things. And why will that happen? Because it's a natural growth path. It will happen. It's a law of nature. It will happen eventually. As long as Bhagwanji protects his faith, eventually this faith will transform into something where he will start to stop asking for material things and he will ask for only him.
It will happen as a natural state as long as the devotee is aware that it's coming from him.
Correct. That is what makes him a devotee
That's
in the
what
first
makes
place.
it a devotee.
Yeah.
We see a lot of people in the world who are probably blessed, and initially Bhagwanji is giving them a lot, and they've used those resources to create a ton of value. But then we also realize as they get richer and more powerful, they get deluded so quickly, and their ego takes over. And like the best example that I can think of, and I don't want to get into a discussion about it, but is Elon Musk. That man is gifted with so much. He has so many vibhutis from Bhagwanji. He's created so much value for millions around the world. He's created so much product. But in the last 5 or 6 years, the battles he's choosing to fight, the conversations he's choosing to create, is all ego driven. And
or so it is perceived by some of us.
We don't know.
We are in no space to make that judgment at all.
But
he is doing what he is doing, and he will reap the benefits of whatever he is doing. Right. The point is, we don't know why he is doing what he is doing. And that's why you should refrain from all such judgments. We don't know. We don't know how he even created what he created. And so we cannot think about what is the world in which he's living and why is he doing certain things, right? Maybe it is ego driven, in which case he will reap the rewards of it in whatever way. We will never know it, right? Maybe it is not. Maybe it comes from a deeper space that we are not even aware of because we have our own limitations. So at all points of time, we should try and give that space of benefit of doubt. Be a judge for ourselves and a lawyer for others whenever possible. And then
And
the
the savant,
fourth type is the savant. Right? The savant or the savant, he is basically the jnani, the wise people, right? And these are the people who know the truth. They already know what is real, what is unreal. And if they already know what is real or what is unreal, then who are they? They are Lord themselves. Right? What so what makes you how can you make yourself immortal? You tell me. How do you make yourself immortal? We are all mortal beings, right? How do you make yourself immortal? Can anyone answer? Anyone?
When you do such deeds which will be there, which people will remember or benefit from, even when you have passed on from this life.
No.
Like,
I gave a card for you.
You will still be immortal only. You'll do all the good deeds, your body will pass away, the memories you create, the thankfulness, the gratefulness that people feel, even all of that will be lost. In your own family, people will not remember you after 2 generations. The third generations will have zero relationship with you, and by the time it's fourth generation, you'll be forgotten in your family. If you've created something of great value in this world, even that gets forgotten after a few hundred years. That is still mortal. How do you make yourself immortal? It's a very simple thing. You don't have to do all of this hard work of going and doing stuff. You are mortal because you recognize yourself with this world. This is what ties us down. Like the monkey who was not opening his fist to get his fist out of that, that matka, right? Only thing you need to do is open that fist. Only thing you need to do is to recognize yourself as one with that immutable transcendental Lord. Once you recognize your true reality, immediately you're free from these mortal coils. You don't have to do anything else. You just have to understand your true reality. The moment that button is on and you say, oh, I am not this body, I'm not the role, I'm not the things I own, I'm none of this. I am only doing seva here. And my true nature is him. At that moment, you have cut all your mortal coils. Then you are him. It is as easy as that. And the person who has that cognition is the savant. And then we've been given certain examples of this, right? So these savants are these type of jnani people.
can I check one thing? Is there a fine line or a thin line between the inquisitive and the savant? Or is it that you move from being an inquisitive to being a savant? Like Om Swami Ji, he is a savant now, right? But he started with a quest where he wanted to, like, when he was in his corporate world, he had this great urge to meet the creator. That is how his journey started. He knew that he has to meet him, and through his book, what I read, like, and through that meditation and that the way he meditated upon it, and finally he could seek the reality. Was in the initial days he was an inquisitive, and then he moved into a savant?
All types of devotees eventually end up being a savant. Because that's your end goal. Your end goal is to merge with him. You can start from any point, end of the day, whatever way you follow, you will end up being him. You will end up being merged with him. Because that's our journey. Whether you go through it in a more conscious manner, which will accelerate your journey, or whether you go through it in a completely unconscious manner, eventually you will get led to that place through your circumstances, through your learnings. Whether you go through all 84,000 crore, yonia, or whether you short circuit that through, your own hard work. But all these devotees will eventually become the savant.
So the savant or the savant is basically the person who always at any point in time is fully aware that he is one with Bhagwanji and he's only interacting with Bhagwanji in this world. Right?
One who sees the Gyan, one who sees him as the source of everything at all points of time. And he could be in any part of the world, right? He could be a corporate CEO, he could be a sage somewhere, he could be a meditator, he could be anybody.
But so savant is that person. So we are all savants. Like right now we're in a class where we believe and we're having a conversation that we are one with the universe and we are interacting with Bhagwanji. Moment the class gets over, this energy might stay for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 hours. Then the world gets in, the hustle bustle comes in, and then you're back to different stages of thinking. Right? So it's not an absolute.
Yeah. And it's
But
not
it's
a
a
person,
bhav.
right?
And it's not a person, it's a bhav. That can I stay with this bhav of being a savant and being consistently aware of seeing Bhagwanji everywhere? You do that, you're being a savant. As simple as that.
And exactly, so Shalini Didi puts it this way, right? When Shalini Didi explains exactly what Abhinav is saying, see, everything we read in this Gita, everything, when we read it, whatever examples are given, they are given in a gross manner for us to understand, because our intellect is so gross, our intellect is so gross that we are not able to understand the subtlety of things. That's why the examples are given so gross. Draupadi's example, Shukadev's example, these people, right? Vibhishan's example, or all of these examples are gross examples of people around whom a whole story has been created for our gross intellect to understand that concept. Okay. End of the day, we have to do manan, we have to do nidhi dhyasan, and we have to improve, we have to get our intellect subtler and subtler and subtler. It has to get subtler to the point that everything we are reading has to end in me. It has to end with my story. It has to connect with my story. If I'm not connecting it to my me story, and I'm not able to get everything implemented into my me story, I don't see how my me story is affected by this learning, is affected by this shloka, or how can I incorporate this into my me story? If I don't see it into my me story, then I have not understood it. It is not about recognizing people outside of who they are doing, whether it's Elon Musk or from whoever, right? It's good. It's good to do that for us to recognize it, as long as we are able to tie it back to myself. Am I being this person? Do I have these tendencies? I do not like something in somebody outside. What should be my reflection? Not the gossip of, oh, what is he doing? Why is she doing that? What is this thing? And start judging them. No, those people are coming, and that specific thought is being triggered in me because of those people. It's not that they are being that person, but that thought is being triggered in me because of that person's presence. It's in me. That thought is coming in me. Why is the thought coming in me? Why am I thinking like that when I'm seeing this person? It's because that tendency exists inside of me. It is getting triggered inside of me. If that thought or that tendency did not exist inside of me, that thought will never come to you. That thought is coming inside of me because I have that tendency, and that is what I need to go and look inside and see. So what is it? What is it about my me story that I need to think about? So my me story is telling me that this feeling is inside of me. How do I take it out now? Yeah. So that is the level of sukshmata that has to connect. Everything has to connect to my Mr. If it is not, then we are not yet reflecting enough.
So let me add to this a little bit. So when we think of our life, in this particular life, we think of it in terms of 70 years, 80 years, 100 years, and we think of it as linear, right? 0 to 80, every year you keep growing, we celebrate the happy birthdays, all of that. What is very interesting is every experience you will have or we will have in our entire life, right from the moment we came out crying to the last breath we take, is happening every second of every day right now. Right now in this world, there is someone who's being born. Right now, somewhere, someone in this world is leaving their mortal coil. Right now, somewhere, someone is having a party, is doing meditation, is having an emotional breakdown, is anxious, is happy, made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, is bankrupt, getting a divorce, getting in this moment right now, the whole world is being created. Your entire life is being created in this shunt, in this moment. So then coming to Tuina's point, how you want your life to unfold, because this energy is there everywhere and it is manifesting in creation of everything in our lives in every second. So how do we create the life we want is exactly what Tuina has referred to, is you need to clean your antakaran. If you are anxious, then that's the energy, that's the life that will continue to unfold for you. If you are a savant and you're a devotee, then you will see more and more of Bhagwanji and his benevolence unfold for you.
His felicity.
His felicity unfold for you.
What is
But
his felicity ultimately,
But
right?
that is your choice. With what bhav and with what work you do on your own self to get rid of the asuri qualities, get the uh, bring in your devotional bhav, and your life will be created to will unfold in a way that would be that of a samadhi, right? Would be for your ultimate benefit, because that is happening in every second. We're not plugged into it because of our limitations, our ego, our sense of control, our tendencies we don't work on. So in our life, then only those things get manifested. Because unless we work on that, we can't go to that next level. But if you work on your antakaran, if you do your nam jap, if you do your swadhyay, then all of a sudden you will get elevated in connecting to the right energies of the pillar.
All devotees of these four categories have been called virtuous by the Lord. The reason is that, whatever be the immediate cause of their worship of the Lord, they have such an intense love of the Lord that they keep away from vicious acts. They seek redressal of their miseries and protection in the Lord only. These four categories are at par with each other. The immediate cause for the worship may be affliction, inquisitiveness, or personal need, but in the attainment of reality as a result of devotion, the cause completely loses its identity.
The most important thing here is intense love of the Lord, that complete faith that it is Him only that will help me, which basically means that so you are only asking Him to redress your miseries, right? So what does that mean? That means that if something is troubling, if something is not going well, you have a bad boss, right? You're not thinking of how to get back at the boss. You're asking Bhagwanji, help me deal with this. It's come here for a reason. You're not out there talking to your gossiping with your colleagues about what a bad boss that guy is, or like trying to see how can I get one up against him, how do I talk to my boss's boss and complain about him. I mean, those you might need to actually talk about it to your boss's boss, but it would not be from a point of view of like seeking revenge or like saving yourself or whatever. It will come from a completely different satoguni space, right? So that is what is the thing, that you're only asking Bhagwanji for your help. You're very clear that I am powerless. I do not know how to do things. You start with I don't know. I don't know. It is him and his strength alone that will allow me to do things if he wills it. If he wills it. And his will is the only will that will get done in this world. That faith doesn't ask, if you have that faith, it doesn't matter what you are asking for or where that devotion is coming from or what you are doing or what you're asking for. Ultimately, it will all transcend. It will all transcend to his love.
Yeah. So this entire thing about faith, right? So we flew to India a couple of days ago on Thursday night, and about 10 days before that, I tested positive first, and a day later, Tuvina tested positive, and Vedant was fine, right? So we isolated as much as we could. We were actually pretty good at isolating for the first few days. Then I tested negative, and then I immediately said, tested negative. He wanted our attention, so I stepped out. We took him out, and whatever. Spent a day with 2 days with him. Then we were supposed to fly Thursday night. Monday morning, when he was getting ready for school, he tested positive. And now Tuina was both of us were very clear that that's the last thing we want. If you want to get positive, it should happen previous week, not this week we are flying. Because we have a lot of people have calendars have been aligned to like fly into here, and a lot of people have come to meet us and onward journey. And it became that morning was a little stressful, right? Because we're like, oh my god, हमने ये भी book किया है, इसको भी change करना पड़ेगा, उसको भी change करना पड़ेगा. And then that's when we made a conscious stop. And we said, either we can have faith in Bhagwanji that this is for our ultimate benefit, or we can try and control every outcome that's going to get affected.
Yeah, so I think the first response from my side was a lot of anxiety and upset. Like, we could have done something better. Did we not isolate them properly? Why did we, like, Abhinav, we should have tested you like 3-4 times before you were allowed. I don't know where it happened. I got more chilled out thinking that, okay, you tested negative, I'll also test negative by tomorrow, it should be okay. Like, we were at fault, we did not do enough, and that caused me to get really upset. And then I think then Abhinav was like, this is why we prepare, this is why we do Gita. It's for moments like this. Either we can have faith, or we cannot have, or we don't have faith. There is no halfway around there. Okay. If we have faith, then no, even this is for his best. You know, that one sentence completely changed the energy. So, like, completely. And that's it. Like, after that, it's like, okay, this is for the best. Now, what does this mean? We don't know.
So typically, when Vedant falls sick, he falls in a sick cycle for 6 days. Viral jab hota hai, 5 or 6 days.
Well, not necessary, but yeah.
He gets a bad throat, his symptoms are aggressive.
And giving him medicine is impossible.
And giving him
because
medicine.
he throws up. You give him medicine, he throws up. So we give him medicine in the bathroom.
So all those
Because we know he
past
throws
mental
up.
models were obviously
Triggering.
added to the anxiety. And then we said, no, Bhagwanji knows we are going to see family after 3 years. Bhagwanji knows our grandparents have limited time with our son. We would love that bond to get built, memories to get created. But Bhagwanji also knows what's for our ultimate benefit. So we will be very clear that we will have the faith in Bhagwanji. We've faced so many miracles in the last week.
No, but the point is, okay, wait a minute. No, I think this is the wrong way to get there. I think the thing was that we gave up the expectation of whether we are going to fly or not. Right? It's not like, oh, Bhagwan ji, do something miracle so that we fly to India. Okay. It was like, no, now whatever happens, happens for the best. So we planned for both the things. What if we are not able to fly? Then what is the plan B? What is plan C? And if we do fly, what is plan A? What are we going to do? Right? So plan A, plan B, plan C, and having complete. So action hasn't stopped. We haven't given up responsibility for our actions. We took full action to think through the consequences. We thought through what are the options available. What happens if this, what happens? So we did scenario planning. We figured out what will happen, what will be our actions if this unfolds, if this unfolds, if this unfolds, right? We did all of that planning, and but we were equally like happy if any of these things come up. It does not matter. We are not attached to one outcome or the other. Be prepared, this is going to get cancelled. Be prepared, Vedant is going to fall very sick. What are we going to do? How are we going to manage that with the work? How are we going to do this? What about the tickets? All of those things, right? And then, ab jo hoga, dekha jayega, right? Now we are prepared, that's it. So this I thought was a great example of how we dealt with that situation. And then we just said, it doesn't matter, right? That stress completely, like I can sense myself how in that moment of like realizing that we have moved away from faith and then coming back, recalibrating to that faith, that entire pain, tension, anxiety completely melted away. And then we were completely equanimous. It was that quick. I was myself like, when this type of stuff happens, right? It's just so amazing. It's like, what? Like, seriously? Like, that's all that I needed? So I was creating all that anxiety for myself, and now I'm suddenly completely calm and happy. Like, weird. Like, seriously, these are the type of examples that make you see how ephemeral or how unreal some of the stuff is that we create for ourselves, and then we feel it's so real. How can I leave it? You've left it and you realize, God, that was so unreal. It was so just created by my own self. And now I've created this also. That's an incredible insight to have in your own behavior. And then, and yeah, I mean, we've flown here, everything worked out. He did not get sick at all. He remained completely asymptomatic. And on the day we had to fly out, night, we did the test. We came here and we did the test. He's been like he's just completely got cured, like nothing.
And
So
now we
this
feel,
is this
and
is
now you look back and you realize that actually Bhagwan ji played the cards so well that we
everything.
got COVID in Singapore and not in India.
Yeah.
And now our grandparents ke saath we can interact being completely safe. You have no
And
worry
we
about.
got sick one day after, literally on the last day when our neighbors had guests over. They had so many guests, they were sleeping in our home. If we had got COVID before, they would have got so inconvenienced. Literally the last day when entire family was going to leave, we got COVID that day. So that was the only day they didn't have to sleep with us. So it's unbelievable. And then we got COVID for the literally the time that we had to like get better to make this trip happen. So many small things like that. I can't even talk about all the rest of the details. So many tiny things you see. Oh my God, like how perfect, was everything. If we had to get it done like so amazingly, like he took care of so many things
I mean,
to
if we had
help
to
us deal with
plan it,
Avtara.
if we had to plan when to get COVID, even like logically, we would never be able to come up with this plan.
Yeah.
But when it happened, and you look back, you're like, ah, you know, he's taking care of us. Right? That's how he communicates. But the reason I wanted to share this was only to highlight the importance of faith. That it's in those tough moments you have to choose. Your faith is at work. Your faith is being tested. The outcome जो होना है वो तो होगा ही, वो तो आप change कर ही नहीं सकते.
His will gets played out outside.
Correct.
Our only choice is how we deal within our antakaran.
Let's continue.
Naina, will you read with us? Action.
Even though no comparative superiority has been indicated in these four categories, the Lord points out a distinguishing feature in a Savant.
Tesham jnani nityayukta.
तेषां ज्ञानी नित्ययुक्ता
एक भक्तिर्विशिष्यते
एकभक्तिर्विशिष्यते
प्रियो हि ज्ञानि प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनो अत्यर्थम्
प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनो अत्यर्थम्
अहं स च मम प्रियः
अहं स च मम प्रियः
तेषाम् of them. Jnani is the Jnani wise one. Nitya Yug, always connected. एक भक्ति, एक भक्ति मतलब उन there is no change, there is no wavering, steadfast. Vishishyate, special or distinct. Priyo is dear. Jnanino atyartham, extremely. Jnani is the wise one, and atyartham is extremely. Aham, me, such a mam priyaha, such person is very dear to me.
of them the savant is distinctly even ever steadfast to and identified with the one reality. To the savant I am exceedingly dear and the savant is exceedingly dear to me. Distinctive features of the savant. The distinctive feature of the savant is being inseparably identified with the Lord. Having known reality, there is no place for any other thing in such a mind. The great poet Rahim says, Pritam Chabhi Nainan Basi, Par Chabhi Kaham Samaya, Dheer Saraya Rahim Likhi, Apu Pathit Firi Jai. The vision of the adored fills the entire view. How can any other vision enter the field? Seeing the tavern full of people, the passer-by himself turns away. Worldly desires or the enjoyments of life or the hereafter are not consciously spurred by the devotee. They themselves take care not to go near the servant. This is why the Lord says that the mind of the realized devotee is completely occupied with his thoughts and he is completely occupied with the servant.
So Savant is a person who identifies himself with the Lord, right? So if he has the wisdom, if he knows the reality, then it's a natural consequence, right? We've understood that the divine knowledge is different from the material knowledge. And when we acquire material knowledge, there is a distinction between the person who knows the object that is known and the knowledge with which we acquire, right? The knowledge that the knower assumes of the object. So there are three distinct parts to things. But in divine knowledge, the person who acquires the knowledge of the reality of the Bhagwanji, all three things merge into one. This is so distinctive. You become that knowledge. So the savant, once he acquires the knowledge of reality, he becomes that reality. He doesn't just know of it as something different or distinct from him. He becomes that eternal, transcendental Lord himself. Right? So to such a person, Lord is very dear to him because now he knows this is the only reality. He's only thinking of him at all points of time. And Lord responds in kind. He says that all the time, right? He says, I respond to you in the way you worship me. In fact, I will respond to you with much greater. So, like you take 5 steps ahead, he will take 5 steps towards you, except that his steps are 10 times bigger than us. So, the intensity is way more. So, he says that because that's why he says that to the Savant, I am exceedingly dear, and such a Savant is exceedingly dear to me. It's a law of nature. He doesn't have control over it. Bhagwanji doesn't choose that that this person is exceedingly dear to me. No, that happens because that the Savant has exceeding love for the Lord. Because he has that exceeding love for the Lord, Lord has to respond in kind because of the law of the nature. So while he does not distinguish between any four types of devotees, for him they are all equal. But he is attracted to them to the extent that they are attracted to him. That is why there is this little distinction. This is a distinctive feature. But that distinctive feature is not created by the Lord. It is created by the servant himself, by the type of devotee himself. You get what I'm saying, right? Does that make sense? So another important thing that has been said, the two important things said in the shloka. Second one is that um, the great poet Rahim, what he has said, right? What is he saying? That when you are in love, right, it's only the person you love, only he is seen everywhere. The person you adore, you see that adored person everywhere. You think of that person. Everything that you see when you're in love, right, everything reminds you of that person, right? You see a color somewhere, you hear of music somewhere, you see something to eat, whatever, right? Everything reminds you of the person you love. Similarly here, right, you're thinking of that person all the time. So it doesn't matter what VVGP is happening, everything is reminding you of that only, of that one thing, which is the Lord. Now, what happens in such a case? He's given an example that when there is a tavern full of people, you are passing by, you come to a tavern, and then you see that it's already so full, it is so crowded, you are naturally turned away, right? Like, oh, it's already so full, I will not go here. You avoid and you go somewhere else where it's not that full. So he's saying that this is how the world works, that if your mind is completely occupied with the thoughts of the Lord, of who you adore, then other thoughts of this material world, they won't even enter. They won't even come near you because you're already crowded. Your mind is already crowded with one type of thoughts. The other thoughts will not even enter. So you don't have to worry about dealing with them. You only have to worry about filling your mind with the divine thoughts. After that, material thoughts will themselves turn themselves away. As an example, when you know of someone who is extremely divine, Om Swami, right now, Kokla talked of Om Swami. Can you imagine? Can you imagine ever finding yourself in the presence of Om Swami and gossiping with him about Bollywood stories? Will it ever even come to your mind? Will you think it is even appropriate? Maybe I am I read Hindustan Times every day or whatever that Sunday newsletter that comes. Every Sunday I read end to end. And I am thoroughly I love Bollywood stories. Right? I love Bollywood gossip. I know exactly who's going around with whom and whose child is coming up, which movie is coming up. I know everything. Even then, I will talk about it to Abhinav. I will talk about it to all my friends. Every time we sit down for a cup of tea, I will talk about that. But in front of Om Swami, I don't think it will even occur to me to talk about it. Because he is so full of divinity that his divinity will impact me. And when I am in his presence, I will not be able to bring myself to talk about this stuff. I will only talk about stuff that I know he is interested in or what he will want to engage with me on. So that's how I convert my relationships with everyone around me. It doesn't matter who Kokila is, or who Sanchita is, or who Naina is, or who Rituj is, or who Rita is, or who it doesn't matter. What is important is how I draw you out for me. When you are with me, who you are being with me is to a very large extent dependent on me, on how I am with you. And that is why when we think of all our relationships around us, it is not about मुझे उसको ठीक करना है. आपको ये सोचना है, if that person is behaving with you in a certain way, what are you doing to draw that from that person? So if you want to fix a relationship in your life, you have to fix yourself, not the other person. You want to fix a relationship, ask yourself, what are you doing to bring that aspect out of that person that is annoying your irritating? It must be something you're doing. If we can change our behavior, we will change the behavior of people around us. And we will change our thinking process of how we perceive the behaviors of those around us. Maybe the behavior of the other person out of habits will not change. Yet, our bhav of how we respond those behaviors will change so dramatically that over a long period of time, that person has no choice but to change his behavior towards you. It's a law. It's a law. It will take time, but it will have an impact. Right? So now go back, whenever we go back to our relationship, think about any relationship that we feel are not happy with. We have to ask ourselves, what do I need to change in myself to have an impact on that relationship, and not think about how can I get that person to think about what he's doing wrong. So these are the two very important points in this shloka. Next one, small, we can do that. Rituj, will you read with us?
If it is so, are the devotees of the other three categories inferior in any way? The Lord says,
Udaraha sarva evaite.
Udaraha sarva evaite,
Jnani twatmaiva me matam.
Jnani tvatmeva me matam,
Astitaha sahi yuktatma.
Astitah sahi yuktatma,
Mame vanuttamam gatim.
Mame vanu tumam katim.
Udaraha is udar, noble or generous, right? So udar really means generous, but in a noble way. So here the meaning is noble. Sarva, all. Evaite, iv iti. These, iv is these, iti is but. Jnani is this wise. Patmaiv is me or is my swarup. Me is mine. Matam, I believe. So me matam, it's I believe or I deem. I think. I deem. Asthitaha, steadfast. That which is unwavering. Yuktatma is one whose mind and intellect is connected to the Lord at all times. So here Yuktatma means the savant. Mameva is mine. Uttamam is supreme. Supreme. Gatim is the goal.
All the devotees noble. In this shlok, the Lord declares all the devotees as
Can you read
equally
the
noble.
italics? Rituj, can you read
Oh,
the
sorry,
italics?
sorry. Yeah. Noble indeed are all these, but the servant I deem as my very self. With the mind steadfast on me, and the servant is established in me, the supreme goal. All the devotees noble. In this shlok, the Lord declares all the devotees as equally noble. But the servant devotee is completely identified and totally amalgamated with the Lord in the same way as a log of wood, when it is fully burned, retains its shape, and the knots on the bark can also be seen as before, but is no longer wood. It becomes a blazing log of fire. Therefore, the Lord regards the servant as his own self. Thus, the question is not of relative superiority, but the position of the servant is quite distinctive. Such servant devotees are considered to be rare. It, however, does not mean that one has to put in great efforts to locate such servants or that it is very difficult to search them out. On the contrary, it is said that if an intense and sincere desire arises in the mind to come in contact with such servants, they present themselves to the seeker. In fact, the rising of such an intense and sincere desire is rare. It is true that such servants are few in number, but few as they may be, they are most powerful and effective spiritually.
So, two things. One, I still want us to understand and read these things from a bhav level. The gross example given, as Tuvina said, is only for help only to help our gross intellect visualize it. But when uh, when they're saying that such savants are really rare, it is true when you think about it, that it is very rare for us to hold on to that thought that divinity is all around us and I'm only interacting with divinity. It is there, we understand it maybe at an intellect level, but it is very hard for us to hold on to it and bring it into our interaction 5 minutes after our class, right? That is the rarity of that, of the Sabbath. But if, now read this line with this context. On the contrary, it is said that if an intense and sincere desire arises in the mind to come in contact with such a Savat, they present themselves to the seeker. Which essentially says, if you're incapable of seeing Bhagwanji everywhere, but you have that desire, ask him for help. Ask Bhagwanji himself. Bhagwanji, I'm unable to see you in my daily life. Can you help show yourself to me? That intense desire that you will create will automatically bring out or strengthen the Sabbath inside of you.
And again, right here, two things like Abhinav said. First one is that he's very clearly said, Bhagwanji said, he does not make any distinction between the devotees. Forget about devotees. He is so unattached, right? He does not make any distinction between virtuous or vicious or wild either. If you are a devotee, good for you. If you are not a devotee, good for you. He does not make any distinction. He does not punish. He does not reward. All of that we punish, we reward ourselves through our actions. We don't get punished or rewarded for our actions. We get punished or rewarded by our actions. Right? So he does not make a distinction. He's made rules of the world. He said, go play. It's up to you. You are free to play the way you want. And the way you will play, the rules will apply to you. So he's saying all of the devotees are equally noble for me. They are all beautiful, they are all noble. But the Savant devotee is extremely distinct, is because of his own actions that cause him to seek me out and cause him to love me so much that I respond with so much of with that same amount of love back to him. That is why that is the distinctive special quality of Savant compared to all others, and the consistency with which he sees Bhagwanji everywhere. And and as Abhinav said, bring it back to my me story. Bring it back to my me story. So this is the speciality of that thought inside of me, the Savant Bhav inside of me. And again, it's rare, but even if it is extremely rare, it is very, very powerful. So do not worry about how rare it may be inside of you. Take solace in the fact that it is extremely strong, stronger than all other bhavs. And so when there is going to be a strong enough desire, it will come in front of you and will guide you and will take over. So if you feel like boss nahi hai ye, mujhe nahi dikh raha hai, mere paas nahi aa raha hai, the only thing you have to change is that, the only thing you have to work on is that desire of yours. So ask yourself, maybe I do not have enough desire. I'm not asking. Then again here, if you don't have enough desire right now, you don't feel it inside of you, ask for it. You know, we in chapter 3 we had read in a shloka, whatever mind ruminates on, whatever thoughts we catch on and we keep thinking about it, that creates our reality. So something which may be extremely silly to you today, right? You think about it and you're like, yeah, what nonsense, like this is so not me or so like whatever. You keep thinking about it, right? You keep thinking about it. At some point of time, it will become such a big reality for you. It's not funny. You will live it. I'll give you an example from my life, right? So I'm generally a very gregarious person, right? In general, I'm very easy with people. I find it easy to meet. I don't like shy away or anything, right? Like, but at some point of time, when me and Abhinav met, in a jest, in a joke, we were talking about, and we were discussing introversion, extroversion, and stuff like that. And he, in terms of a degree of extroversion, he is of a higher degree of extroversion than me. So relatively speaking, between the two of us, I would be comparatively, I would have more scale of an introvert than him, right? So if you have scale of 1 to 10, I would put him somewhere around between 9 and 10, maybe 10, maybe 11, actually on a scale of 10. He's that extrovert, right? I am somewhere probably 7, 8, kind of an extrovert, right? 7, 8, maybe even 9, if I push myself more. But so between the two of us, I would say, yeah, I'm an introvert, he's an extrovert, right? But am I really an introvert? First of all, there is no point in labeling. The first thing we do is we label, right? As long as we label with the understanding that I'm doing this labeling only to make some sense of this world, it's okay. But when we start labeling and then saying everything, this is the only truth, that's where we delude ourselves, right? So we started joking about, oh, I'm an introvert, I'm an introvert. We would talk about it to our friends. We would tell them, oh, yeah. Everybody laughed when they heard me, right? This is 10 years ago. Everybody laughed. Like, Tohina, you, an introvert? Ha, ha, ha. Like, if you're an introvert, then I don't know what an introvert looks like, right? That's how people used to laugh. And we used to make fun of ourselves like that. You won't believe it, but I actually, at some point of time, that joke actually became a reality. And I started believing that I am an introvert and I do not want to hang out with people, and that being with people takes away a lot of energy from me, and my being and my behavior and my way of life changed significantly over last 2, 3, 4 years. Like, it took long for that thought to completely, like, from a point where I used to say I'm an extrovert to a point where I started fully believing that I'm an introvert. It took a period of like 6, 7 years for that thought to fully get manifested in my life. But it did get manifested from a point where it was such a big joke to a point where the new friends that we made in last 2, 3, 4 years would be like, yeah, Toina is a comparatively an introvert. You see the difference, you see the distinction. All it took for that change in a full personality in and change in my life choices happened from a silly joke. Seriously, a silly joke. And we just kept on joking because we found it funny. But that is the reality. That is the power of thoughts. You start out with something thinking that it's just a joke and you can make fun of it, but you engage with it, even if in jest, it eventually will take hold. So we have to be very careful. When I recognized that thought and I understood how that silly thought has changed me, I said, okay, I'm done with this thought. I'm not going to talk about it. And I changed my me story and I said, I'm not this person. I am an extrovert person and I've always been that. And I have these vibhutis and I will use it. Bhagwan ji ne mujhe vibhuti diya for a reason. If I'm not using that vibhuti where I am able to strike a good relationship with people easily, then I am doing a disservice to Bhagwan ji. I am not being his instrument then, right? Bhagwan ji is given a vibhuti, to matlab usko use karna hai hame. Correct? So that's when I decided, that's it. I'm done with this silly thought. And I left it. And that's it. That's all that it takes. You just leave it. But so important to be so careful about the stories we tell, the thoughts we engage in continuously. They will create our reality. So that's why even if you start off as a joke about engaging with Bhagwan ji, even if you engage like मुझे नहीं समझ में आ रहा, मेरे को कोई विश्वास नहीं है या कुछ भी, कोई भी चीज के बारे में, if you want to create it, just think about it. The more you think about it, the more you think about it, it will eventually become a reality in your life. Be very careful about this and use it. It's a very powerful tool in your hands, your thoughts. Use it wisely. Use it to only engage in positive things, things you want to create, things that are good for you and for the world, things that are in line with Bhagwanji's precepts. If you do it, you will see it transform your life in serious ways. And if you engage in other thoughts, then they will also get manifested without you realizing it. Then we'll end up, saying, "We GP or ye to aisa hi hai. I am like this only." No, we are not like this only. we create ourselves like this only. On that note, we close the class today. We will start with Shloka 19 next class. Would anybody like to volunteer for the closing shlokas? Yeah, I'll just close the